Good evening, and welcome to another episode of OmenG's Stupid Scary Stories. Tonight I'll be reading from, it's called, Connecticut Ghost Stories and Legends by Thomas D'Agostino and Arlene Nicholson, part of the Haunted America series. Tonight's story: the Windham Textile Museum. Let us begin. Beverly York is no stranger to history. She retains a position as an important staple of the Connecticut landmarks, where she is curator of several buildings owned by the organization. She is also no stranger to the world of the paranormal. Some of these landmarks still hold quarter to past revenants that amble among the chambers they knew in life. Beverly has seen and heard some of these ethereal characters and was not afraid to share some of her experiences with Arlene and me, especially a few occurrences regarding the Windham Textile Museum. The Windham Textile Museum is composed of two historic buildings that were erected in 1877 and are situated in the massive mill complex that once housed the Willimantic Linen Company, which later became the American Thread Company. The mill ran from the 1870s until 1985, when it finally closed. Workdays in the mills were long and harsh. The buildings were cold in the winter and sweltering hot in the summer. The days lasted from 12 to 14 hours, and the machines were dangerous to the less than careful. Many workers were killed or maimed by the unforgiving apparatus used in early industry. The factory owners paid their employees with company scrip. This way, they could set up stores for the workers to shop at and recoup their wages back at a profit, no less. From the moment the society acquired the property, strange occurrences began to vie for the employees' attention. As restorations were about to begin, they noticed a large safe that needed to be opened. No one had the combination to open the massive door, so a locksmith was called in to assist the society in gaining access to the inside of the structure. After examining the lock with a laser light, the locksmith quoted a price of $300 to crack the catch. They had to put the idea on hold until funds could be properly appropriated for that particular task. Apparently, the spirits of the factory did not want them to spend such cash in that manner, for when Beverly entered the building the next morning, she was quite astonished to see the safe door swung wide open. Another incident left her quite perplexed. She explained the situation to us as such. Excuse me.
There was this one door that was pain for me to open and close. It was a closet where all the light switches were, and the lock would push upward at the top of the door. Not only was it hard for me to reach the lock, the age of the building had caused a lot of settling, and the door was slightly misaligned. When I was there, I never shut or locked that door. One evening, when I was closing up, I went to turn off the lights, and the door was closed and latched. I was the only person in the building that day, and back then, the only person with a set of keys to the old mill. Yet the door was locked, tight, with the latch pushed upward.
How a latch can fall upward is one of the great mysteries of the paranormal that every investigator would like to take a crack at solving. This was not Beverly's only encounter with the invisible yet playful spirits of the museum. Another series of uncanny occurrences that left Beverly a bit bewildered was the way the spirits played with the paperwork. On several occasions, very important and time-sensitive documents disappeared from her desk without a trace or clue. She would search through every sliver of paper looking for what she knew should have been in plain view. After a while, she would give up and lock the doors for the night. In the morning, she would find the documents at the top of the paper pile on her desk. This happened several times. Others have felt cold spots that seemed to follow them about the museum. The third floor houses a library that was once available to the workers. It is called the Dunham Hall Library, after the founder and owner of the mill, Austin Dunham. It opened on March 2nd, 1878, as Willimantic's first library. Factory owners felt that their workforce should be educated. To them, this was an investment, as many spoke various languages and communication was an issue. Workers were given their breaks to take in the library and read or study. It was available to them at different hours after work, and classes were held in the room to better educate the workforce. This is quite different from the normal scenario of early factories and even those of today. Strange noises can be heard when the place is empty, as if someone is shuffling around looking for a book among the shelves. The second floor is host to a feeling of being watched while touring the museum. This floor contains permanent exhibits such as a recreation of the company office, a typical mill manager's lavish Victorian home, and the mill workers' meager quarters. Even the most hardened skeptics cannot help but feel uneasy when exploring the exhibits on that floor. Our visit to the museum was most informative and intriguing. The staff was very much into the ghostly goings-on in the two buildings. Curator Brooke Shannon told us of some of the findings within the museum. Two women once followed a person into a room. When the tour guide asked them where they were going, they stated that they had seen a strange figure walk into the small room. Upon investigation, they found the room to be empty, save for themselves. There is a spirit of a child in this gift shop. She has been witnessed in that back corner by the books, Shannon informed us. Paranormal investigator Joe Gallant took a few photos of the small mill next to the museum that at one point served as a fire station. He was shocked to see the image of a little boy looking out one of the windows. Child labor was common in those days. In fact, at one time, child labor made up 55% of the workforce in Rhode Island. Children were used to long working days and from farm life, so it was an easy transition as far as the hours of labor time was concerned. Children could run simple machinery and were small enough to scurry under the looms when they became tangled and untangled the threading before the loom came back at them. They were not quick enough. The result was very grim. A neighbor inquired to Shannon about the tenant who stayed up all night, occasionally looking out the third-story window where the library was. Shannon relayed to the startled fellow citizen that the building is a museum and there is no residents occupying the structure, at least not living ones. It can be certain that energy still lingers among the artifacts that are now an important part of our manufacturing history. Maybe a few spirits feel that their contribution to that history should not go unnoticed as well. Once again, another story that doesn't have any real crazy occurrences, at least in the text that I've read. But, of course, folks, that would not be the case when I went to go investigate said premise. No. In fact, it was something more terrifying. A lot more terrifying, actually. It terrified me to a point of wanting to mess my pants. And I'll tell you why. Went to the Windham Textile Museum. Right? I figured, of course, this is what I do. I investigate shit, hunt demons and such, you know. Now I remember when I got there, one of the caretakers, curators, whatever you want to call them, came up to me and said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Hey, how you doing? Heard about you go around investigating stuff, trying to prove hauntings wrong or whatever it is you do. You're one of those ghost hunter people." No, not one of those ghost hunter people. I do like the occasional paranormal experience, but to say I hunt them necessarily is wrong. I just like paranormal shit, you know. Started off with me watching Nuke's Top 5 and Sir Spooks, and then After watching Nuke's Top 5 and Sir Spook's A Little Slapped Ham, listening to Scary Stories by Mortis Media, and others like Let's Read, Raven Reads. But that's not the point. The point is, I like to explore more than anything, and if there's a paranormal undertone, well, that makes it all the more interesting to me. Well, bullshit aside, because that's all you were just talking was a bunch of bullshit, there are some ghosts here. Quite a few, actually. Quite a few, you say? Yes, quite a few. Are they nice ghosts? For the most part, we haven't heard of anything terrible happening here. I said, from what I understand, there's a lot of children ghosts here as well. Yes, there are quite a few children ghosts. Might I ask why there are children ghosts in what used to be a factory? Could you give me a little background? I mean, I kind of have an idea, but I'd like to hear your input on that. Well, back in the day, child labor was a normal thing. It wasn't considered child labor. It was just like, hey, look, you're 6, get up, go to fucking work, right? Shit, you can walk, talk shit, you can work. So, there were a lot of 5 and 6 year olds working in these factories. A lot of factory owners realized, I don't have to pay these fucking kids. Why would I have to pay them? They're fucking kids. What the hell are they gonna do with money? In fact, I'm doing their families a favor. You don't have to pay for babysitters, and guess what? Your kids are someplace where they're not roaming the streets like vagabonds, pickpocketing other people, and having to potentially be slapped by the constable. Everybody in that society saw it as a win-win. I mean, you gotta think about it. Back then, kids didn't live that long anyway, for the most part. If it wasn't some type of disease that killed them or potentially starving to death, they died as babies. So to have a 6-year-old able to go to fucking work was a cool thing. That's why, back then they would have so many kids. Yeah, but that doesn't explain why there's ghost kids in this building. Explain that part. Well, factories have accidents. And since 55% of the workforce or more was children, well, a lot of those children were in accidents. Accidents. Yes, accidents. Such as? Oh, well, machines would sometimes catch a hold of them, pull them into the works, grind them up. They'd get slammed down on. Cutting boards would chop off hands and fingers. They'd bleed to death. Things of that nature. They didn't all die. There's a good number of them. So the ghosts that are in this house, the children ones anyway, died while working. Not playing or having any fun or some disease. They died working for free. Little slave children. Well, if you want to put it that way, well, what other way would you put it? Well, I see your point. Exactly. So, let's move on, shall we? Let's move on. Is there any ghosts in particular? Any named ghosts that I should be aware of? No, not that we know of. We've never really stopped to talk to them, and they don't really stop to talk to us. So, no, we don't know of any named ghosts. Just, there's a little boy, there's an old guy, there's a couple of ladies, mostly children, though. All right, thank you. So, she pointed in the direction of the building, which was once the mill where I could find children, ghosts, spirits, and things. Of course, like I told you, I always have my stuff that I bring with me on all of these little incursions into the paranormal world, right? Candles, blessed oil, had my holy shotgun, just in case any craziness happened. And believe me, it was a very good thing that I did bring my holy shotgun. I opened the door and stepped in. Was immediately greeted with a gust of cold-ass air around my knees. You're saying, well, you're wearing pants. How would you feel a gust of cold-ass air around your knees? Because it was really cold. It was really cold. I could feel it. It's like, oh, my knees, shins, feet, cold. Why? I immediately heard the laughter and then crying of children, several children. I said, hello, children. Show yourselves. My name is Reese. I'm here to ask some questions and find out some things about the life that you lived in this factory. Short as it was, I have questions for you. I started to see these small, ghostly figures taking shape. There were like 12 of them. 12 little ghost kids. A couple of boys, a few girls, you know what I'm saying? 3 or 4 of them were missing arms and legs. It was really bad. A couple of them had fucked up scarred faces. One was missing an eye and half of a jaw. Ugh. And this is what they put children through. Back in the day, folks. That's not a joke. They really did put kids to work in factories. Like, the type of factories that you see nowadays, kids. Yeah. Machinists, children were. Mechanics on machines that they could fit their little tiny hands into, they were. And this is back before you had, lockout tagout, where somebody wouldn't turn the machine on. So I asked the children, I said, can we speak, please? Yes, shall you speak to us? Yes, we will speak to you. The littlest one told me. He's a little boy, dark brown hair, and freckles on his face, who was missing both of his hands and half of his leg. Now you're asking me, how are they walking around? They're ghosts. They float anyway. It's not like he needs his fucking leg to fucking walk around and shit. He's a fucking ghost. But like I said, he was missing half his leg and both of his hands. I said, what is your name, young lad?
Bertram. 'Tis my name. 4 years old.
4 years old? God damn! Shit! They let you work in the factory?
My mother and father had all of us working here.
All of you? How many kids, brothers and sisters did you have?
12 brothers and sisters. We all worked in the factory. I remember the day my life was lost.
Oh, that's very sad. Tell me about it.
The loom had been tangled with yarn, spinning pantaloons. We were. I went to the machine to unclog it. I had my friend Dwayne stop the machine, turned off the steam so that it would not continue to go as I reached my arm and hands into the small wheel to untangle the thread. The foreman came in, big rough man that he was. His name was Jonah Wilkinson. He saw the machine had been stopped, and before asking any questions, even with my fellow co-workers yelling to him, No! Bertram is within the machine! Bertram is within the machine! They screamed and yelled, but it was too late for him and me. Well, me, not him, but me. He listened not. He turned the machine back on and ripped my hands clean off. Of course, I lost my balance, and as I went to reach to steady myself, I remembered I had no hands. So my little nub missed the surface. I slipped, fell, my leg was torn off at the knee. I laid on the floor, writhing in agony, bleeding, bled out right there, died. I remember my spirit left my body almost immediately. They didn't even give 10 minutes of a rest. They started the machine right back up. They told the children they could retrieve the body after the day's work. I've been stuck here ever since.
God. It's horrible, Bertram. It's horrible. Nowadays, they don't make kids work.
They don't make kids work.
No. Kids, they're not allowed to work. It's actually against the fucking law. Like, if I tried to send my child to work at your age, first things first, they wouldn't fucking hire them, of course, unless they were like Kia and Alabama and shit. What? Huh? Did I say something controversial? No, I didn't say anything about Kia hiring underage children to work in a factory somewhere. It didn't come out of my mouth at all. Anyway, yeah, no, it's illegal for small children to work in factories. You have to be at least like 15, and you can only work certain jobs. Factories with machines, you have to be over the age of 18. Over the age of 18? Yes. And kids nowadays, they actually get paid to work. Well, when they do work, they're 15. They get paid. From what I understand, you guys didn't get paid. No. Paid not, we did. It's terrible. Lost your hands and your arm and leg and fell on the floor and bled out, and they didn't even stop the machines to move your body till the end of the day. Actually, they did not move my body at the end of the day either. Why? The day did not end. For we did not make our quota due to the accident. So I was not removed until early the morning after. Terrible. So they made all the kids work with your dead, bleeding body laying there? That's horrible. I'm sorry to hear that, Bertram. Now, of course, in my heart, I'm feeling quite terrible. I mean, could you imagine nowadays? Which would be cool, except for the getting maimed part. Like, kids 5 and 6 years old going to work. Like I said, it would be cool, because, like, think about it. You wouldn't even have to work anymore. You could just have kids send their asses to work. Except, they get paid for it nowadays, right? Could you imagine having, like, 10 kids? They're, like, ages 5 to 10. Well, not 5 to 10, because then you'd be, like, fucking keeping your wife pregnant, like, every single year. Potentially Irish twinning the shit out of her. Let's say, like, 5 kids between 5 to 10. Make it a little bit more reasonable. And they all had jobs making, like, $10 an hour, right? They're kids. What the fuck are they gonna do with the money, right? You can sit at home and just chillax. In fact, they could all be making $5 a fucking hour. There's 5 of them. It's $25 an hour. They're just kids. Fuck them. Shit, they're loudmouth little bastards most of the time anyway. Unappreciative. I bet you they'd have some appreciation nowadays if they had to work at like 5, right? I bet you they would. They wouldn't be talking no shit. They'd be too tired to talk shit. They'd come home and go right to fucking bed so they could be up bright and early for work the next day. Have them working overtime and shit, getting that time and a half. Take their paychecks because, they're too young to have bank accounts and shit. So, hey, kids, put your money in this bank account. We'll spend it on you as you need. When you need clothes, you'll have them. Now, of course, that probably wouldn't work when they get older, like 15, 16. They probably want to leave the house and bounce because, they're doing all the fucking work and shit. But, it would be kind of cool. It would be kind of cool. Cash in on that shit. They should change the labor laws. Change them. You know what I'm saying? Let them work. Let them work. Let them go to work. I wouldn't say it like 5 and 6 years old. Well, let them go to work. Let them do simple shit. Like, 7 and 8 year olds can bag groceries. Why not? It's just putting stuff in a fucking bag. Why should grown people have to do that shit? And sweep floors. You know what I'm saying? Have them sweep floors, mop, get carriages, carts and things. Even be cashiers. Most kids 7 and 8 years old know how to count and add. And besides, you're just pressing buttons on a fucking machine. It's not like you're really adding this shit anymore. You scan it. It tells you what the fucking total is. Somebody gives you some money. You push the numbers. Bam. Change. And that's even if people give you money. Most of the time, people, cash and card only. You're just standing there to be there for whatever strange reason. Most of the time. I wouldn't mind having a, little kid be my damn cashier somewhere. That would be $5.99. Oh, thank you. Here's $6. Do you know what the change for that is? 1 cent. Shut up. I'm not a fucking idiot. I'm just a kid. Okay. No need to be rude. Jeez. Or they could be door greeters at Walmart. Why should it be some retired old person? Or a middle-aged person? And these people don't want to sit there and wave hello to people. They're not happy. No one's happy about that shit. But little kids, they love people. They'd be at the door. Hi! Welcome Walmart! Enthusiastic. People would come there just because the kids are so happy and friendly. You know what I'm saying? I really think that we should really, bring it back. But that's not what the story was about. I'm talking to these kids in this Windham Textile Museum. They keep telling me their stories of tragedy, how the bosses didn't, take care of them properly, right? But there's this one kid. He's in the back. He's kind of hanging in the back. Wasn't really talking. And I realized why. Half his jaw was missing. I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck kind of accident did he get into where it ripped off half his jaw? Well, I found out that it wasn't an accident. He was actually murdered by the foreman for speaking up about the rights of children. It was a particularly hot day. Sweltering. These poor kids were sweating their asses off. No water to drink. Foreman was pushing them harder than he had ever pushed them before. We need more pantaloons! More pantaloons, children! Shit! Why are you working so slow? I have turned the machine up to full blast. I expect pantaloons by the dozens. Post haste! The little kid wasn't too happy about this guy, talking all this shit. They were hot, sweating. They could hardly keep their hands on the little machinery sliding off. They were soaked, and they were just tired and hot. He said, "We need water, or we will stop the work that you have given us." Who saith that? Show your face. Step forward from the line, so I may punish you and make an example of you in front of your friends. A little boy stepped out. I think his name was Timothy. Yeah, his name was Timothy. Walked out into the center of the line, stepped up to the foreman. He was bold. Bold. Back in those days, kids didn't really talk shit to adults unless they were orphans and had no, proper upbringing. Most children feared adults. Like we know, back in those colonial times, religion was heavily instilled in the minds of most of the people who lived. So disrespecting one's parents or elders was almost paramount to disrespecting God himself. But this child would hear none of that. He would hear none of that. We want water, or we will no longer work! How dare you? Do you know who the fuck I am? I am the foreman! Boss! You will do as you are told. You'll make the damn pantaloons, or I will strike you down. Strike me down, then. I refuse. Now, the other kids, seeing this bold display of rebellion from this young Timothy, were emboldened. They too stepped away from their machines, bringing production of the pants to a complete and total stop. They stood behind young Timothy. Yeah! We want water! We won't work until we have water! Cries of water throughout the factory. And more children were stepping away from their machines until everything within the mill had came to a halt. Now, the foreman knew he had to make an example of this little child. He couldn't have this kid telling him what the fuck was going to be done. I mean, could you imagine a little kid becoming like the foreman back then? Would have made more sense to have a kid in charge of the kids. Since you have kids working, they're responsible enough to work, they should be responsible enough to supervise one another, right? Yeah. Well, that's not the way they thought. See, I would have thought that way because then you don't have to pay the foreman, right? You just have the biggest of the kids, promise him some type of status or some shit. He has an extra bowl of gruel at lunchtime or something, tell him he's better than the rest of the kids, he's special. Whatever, use some psychological bullshit. Anyway, the foreman, seeing this brazen display of dissension from status quo. Had to make an example of young Timothy. He brought his hand up like this. "I shall strike you down!" And he smacked Timothy so fucking hard that his jaw flew off, hit the wall. The children saw this. They gasped in shock. Timothy jaw is like this. Little tongue sticking out of his mouth, but no jaw. Now, once the foreman saw what he had done, he knew that, the parents of Timothy would probably want to whoop his fucking ass, slapping their kid's jaw off. So he couldn't let Timothy go home. That wouldn't work. So he put him into the machine, and it crushed him. Killed little Timothy, and the children never spoke of it. At least the few that had actually seen what happened. You gotta remember, this factory is long, so there were kids standing off the line, but they didn't all see exactly what happened to Timothy. It's about a good maybe 5 or 6 of them that actually saw the foreman slap Timothy's jaw off and then put him into the machine. He swore to them that he would do the same to them if they ever said anything about what happened. "It was an accident. That's what you shall report if ever asked what happened here. If his parents ask you how he died, he was playing too close to the machines. Got snagged, pulled within the workings of the loom, and crushed to death. Any other story shall be met with a vengeance from me unlike seen by any of you." The children were scared to death. Scared to death. And they still didn't get their water. Now, the spirit of Timothy, seeing that these kids were so quick to stand up when they saw him talking some shit about water for them, but upon his death, they just sat there. Didn't even tell his fucking family. His family had to go around for the rest of their lives believing that little Timothy simply made a erroneous error and died from clumsiness. Well, little Timothy would have his fucking revenge. He'd have his revenge. Started with the children. The 6 children that witnessed his demise and said nothing all met similar fates. Well, not similar as far as the fact of them getting their jaws slapped off and crushed by the machines, but they would have these freak accidents. For instance, one was helping to string the loom when the big bale of wool fell down on top of him, suffocating him to death. Another was walking down the stairs, slipped and fell, broke his neck. Another was working in the heat, died of heat exhaustion. Now you're probably saying, this all sounds like some normal shit that would happen to a kid working in a factory. What's paranormal of it? What's paranormal is it all happened on the exact same day. Now yes, there were accidents from time to time, but 6 deaths one day? And it just so happened to be those 6 kids that saw what happened to little Timothy? It's not coincidence, folks. That's not a coincidence. That is little Timothy getting his revenge. But it didn't stop there. No. It didn't stop there. There was a young woman that the foreman used to bring to the loom at night. She was married. So was he. They'd fool around, if you know what I'm saying. But they would do so in the factory so nobody else would know. It's a big place. So it's not like anybody was supposed to be there at night anyway. Right? One day he decides he's going to take her up to the loom room. Right? There was some shipments of cotton and wool that had come in. So they figured rather than bumping uglies on the hard-ass floor as they usually did, they'd bump uglies on the soft bales of cotton and wool. Even though it was a little itchy, they didn't really care. Nasty fuckers. They were doing what they weren't supposed to be doing anyway, so it didn't matter to them. Anyway, while they're getting it on, Foreman, he decides that he's going to up the ante a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Not going to say exactly what he did to up the ante, but he did something to up the ante. You know, change up, spice things up a little bit. He got up from the bale of cotton hay and was making his way over to the closet to get something from the closet to use in his little nightly romp. As he was making his way back, he heard the terrifying scream of his lover. Her hair had been caught up in the loom and had begun to do its thing. Started without any power, without the steam boiler going. No, it just supernaturally was powered. And when her hair started to be pulled towards the knitting machine, she screamed. Ah! Started screaming the name of the foreman. He ran over to the direction of where she was, where he had left her, and he saw her head being pulled towards the machine. Now, he knew what was going to happen if her head got pulled into this machine. It would get crushed. So immediately he grabbed her by her shoulders. She grabbed his shoulders. And he was trying his hardest to pull her from the machine. No, it didn't work. What ended up happening was very gruesome. And I feel bad for her because she didn't hurt little Timothy. But little Timothy didn't give a fuck. He didn't give a fuck at all. Her whole scalp just started to rip right off her head. Just like... Oh God. The skull was showing. Everywhere where hair was now skull. The foreman looked at his lover, tossed her to the ground in shock. Oh! How? What? Oh my God! God, please! He turned to run. When he turned to run, he saw little Timothy standing there, jawless. Little Timothy looked at him with a look of anger, vengeance in his eyes. His little evil eyes. He started to move towards the foreman. The foreman kept saying, "Thou art dead! Thou art dead! The possibility of this is none! You can't be here! What is this? God, please!" But there was no God there to help him that day. No. See, God obviously didn't like what this motherfucker did to this little kid, or these little kids in general. Not to say that he condoned what little Timothy was doing, but he wasn't answering the prayers of this fucking asshole. Let's just put it that way. As he backed up, he had forgotten to, pull his pants up. So he's still kind of walking around, free balling it. You know what I'm saying? Back then, unless you were Jewish, you generally didn't get snipped, if you know what I mean. And when he turned to run, the extra skin on his member got caught in the machine. Oh boy. You should have heard the yelling and screaming that he probably did, because I didn't hear it, but I'm imagining that he probably yelled and screamed quite a lot. Quite a lot. Now, he wasn't killed by the machine, but his Johnson was torn from his body and then mangled in the loom. Ugh. He yelled and screamed so much he alerted some of the people in town. A couple of constables came, and one of those constables just so happened to be the husband of the woman he was just bumping uglies with. Her dead body upon the floor, head ripped, naked. When the constable arrived and saw the scene, his wife, obviously having had sex with this man standing there without his penis, oh, he was fucking furious. He flew into a rage. It was at that point that little Timothy possessed the body of the constable. And he beat that foreman to a bloody fucking pulp. They had to close the mill for 2 days to clean up the mess. Now, of course, the constable was not charged with the crimes. They deemed it a crime of passion because this man was laying with his wife, and it was assumed that he had been the one that killed the constable's wife. So the constable was merely doling out justice that was deserved to this piece of shit foreman. Now, on an unrelated note, he ended up getting with the foreman's wife after this whole thing happened. Turns out that they were, seeing each other on the side as well. So, what a circle of shit that was. But it was an interesting little tale that they told me about Timothy. The tale they told me about Timothy. Say that 3 times fast. Tale they told me about Timothy. Tale told me about Timothy. Now, the foreman's ghost wasn't there. From what I understand, his soul was sent straight to hell, where he went and stayed, and is now being tortured by Satan. And he has no dick, which sucks. He can't have ghost sex. Can't have ghost sex. Wow. Anyway, after talking to the rest of the children and visiting a few more places in the house and on the grounds, I decided I had seen quite enough. There was really nothing else that I wanted to see. I made contact with the children, learned their story. Now, like I said, minus the horrible conditions that kids were forced to work in, I think we should roll back labor laws. Roll them back. Let's make America work again. For us, the parents. These ungrateful ass children. They want this, and they want that. And then when they do get jobs, you think that they, help around the house with the money that they have? No, it's their money. They worked for it. Well, like if you make them start going to work and they're 5 years old, they can't get bank accounts. So it's our money, people. It's our money. We get to keep it until they're old enough to do something with it. And think about it, that's like 10 years. of saving up their money for you. And if you have multiple children, wow, you can retire by the time they're like 18. Just like within 10 or 15 years. You know what I'm saying? Depending on when you make them go to work. If your kids are smart and figure things out quickly, you might even be able to get them in there at 3. Shh. Don't tell anybody that I'm talking about this. That would be, let's say I was deciding to run for president or some crazy ass shit like that. Not that that would ever happen, but let's decide that I decide to run for president. Parents, the United States of America, I run before you on the campaign to put these fucking kids back to work. They don't want to go to school. And when they're in school, they're hardly learning anything at all. They're spending too much time tapping away on their fucking phones and tablets and shit. Well, you elect me president of this United States of America, I promise to take labor laws and wipe my fucking ass with them. That's right, I said it. I'm gonna wipe my ass with labor laws, folks. That's right, your ungrateful child, you can send his ass to work. And keep all the money for yourself. Make it their payment for all the pain and suffering they have caused you for their lives. And the stress you know that they're going to cause you even after they move out of your house. You vote for me, I promise. From the age of 4 to the age of 15, well, let's say 18, 17. Let's be nice. 18, they can control their own money. From the age 5 to 17, they will no longer be able to open bank accounts unless they are open up. Well, they can't open bank accounts now, but they won't be able to open up bank accounts, period. Parents will have sole control over their money. We will no longer send them to school to learn shit that they're not going to use anyway. That's right, folks. We're going to send them to factory schools. We're going to bring manufacturing back to this country. We will pay them a fair wage. $15 an hour across the country. That's right, factories. You're going to pay them $15 an hour. If I catch any factories out there not paying these kids $15 an hour, we will take control of your factories and we'll run them for you. And all your board members and owners and profit holders and all those shareholders and shit will be sent to prison. No, not prison. We'll hang you publicly in front of the kids. So in 2024, vote Reese. Send your kids to work. Relax. Sit at home. Chill. Retire early. Go on vacations and shit. We'll make sure the kids are safe. We'll have standards better than the ones that we work in ourselves. Because we're adults. Nobody really gives a fuck about us. But we'll care for the kids. Because, as long as they're alive, it's a good labor force. And there's plenty of them out there with nothing better to do with their time. Think about it, folks. No more dumbass TikToks. I don't have to sit there and see them doing stupid dances or retarded ass challenges that'll potentially get them hurt or killed. Why waste great manpower on dumbness when you can waste it all in making this country a manufacturing hub? Now, I know, there's some of you out there that are like, oh, that's terrible, human rights, children's rights. Fuck their rights. Fuck their rights. They have a right to work. A right to work and be safe. They can't get kidnapped if they're at work. Can't get hurt and killed on the streets if they're at work. They can't beat up the teachers if they're at work. A lot of things won't happen to them if they're at work. So vote for me in 2024. Let's put these kids to work. That'll be my campaign slogan. Reese, putting kids to work. Yeah. Look, for me, I got a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, so I still have some time left, you know what I'm saying? Put them to work. Yeah, my own kids would work too. What do you think? Just because I'd become president, they wouldn't have to work? No. They're gonna work. They're gonna work. Come on, people. I know some of you have had those days where you've just looked at them and they're like, why don't you take us where we want to go? And you're like, I'm tired. I just worked like 8 hours. So what? We want to go here, or we want to do this, or we want you to do that. We don't care if you work like 8 hours. Make their asses work. They'll have a new appreciation. They'll learn better respect. No more of this nonsense that they're doing. This country's going down the tubes, people. It's going down the tubes! Our forefathers, well, you guys' forefathers, my four owners, well, they had the right idea. And if we put kids to work, well, there's more time for us to do shit we want to do. Not have to listen to all this nonsense that kids are always talking about. You know, they won't have questions. They'll be tired. They'll come home, they'll go right to sleep. They'll wake up and they'll go to work. Or you can tell them, hey, listen, it's either this or you actually are going to go to school and do right in school, meaning shut the fuck up, sit the fuck down, and learn. I want straight A's, or your ass is working a 10-hour fucking shift at the goddamn fucking factory, motherfucker, and I don't want to hear a goddamn thing from you. No more free time. No more free time. No more free time. I want to thank everyone for joining me for tonight's stupid scary story. Number 70 today. Wow. Just a couple of months ago, I was at like number 28 or something like that. Now I'm on 70. It's almost like 50 fucking stories. Holy shit. Now, remember, one more year. That's going to be my platform, folks. So if you believe that putting kids to work is the way to build this country right back up the way it should be, well, by all means, subscribe to the channel. Help support this ideal. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you want to be notified when I come up with another one of these silly ass stories, well, by all means, hit the notification icon and I'll notify you when it happens. Until next time, folks, take care of yourselves and have a wonderful